सब्सक्राइब करें परिष्कार कॉलेज यूट्यूब चैनल को और साथ ही बेल आइकन पर क्लिक जरूर करें, जिससे हमारे सभी वीडियोस नोटिफिकेशन सबसे पहले आप तक पहुंचे।
Hello students, I am Jaya from Parishkar International College, and today we are going to discuss our topic, that is the sources of ancient India. Before moving to this topic, it is essential to know that this topic is from history of India from the beginning up to the 1200 AD, and this is the first paper in BA where those students who are opting the history as their optional paper. We can see that history is consisted of the two papers, and the first paper is of history of India. Be remember this thing, and from this history of India we are going to take the topic sources of ancient India. Before moving to the topic, सब्सक्राइब करें आप YouTube पर हमारे परिष्कार वर्ल्ड ऐप को, और बेल आइकन करना ना भूलें, जिससे आपको समय समय पर मिलने वाले अपडेट्स मिल सकें। नाउ बिफोर डिस्कसिंग द टॉपिक, इट इज एसेंशियल टू नो about the syllabus of BA part first year regarding the history subject. We remember this thing, students, that ancient Indian history is very important from the competition point of view. Why? Because if you are preparing for IAS, if you are preparing for RAS, if you are preparing for the other central as well as the state competition exams, ancient India is coming in each and every competition. Okay, so whenever I am going to discuss the syllabus, I will also discuss the relevance of the subject according to the IAS and other competition exams. So first come to the syllabus. The syllabus of history is divided into three sections, and we are going to discuss the section A. This is section A. After section A, section B is there, and after section B, section C is there. But we are taking first of all section A. Section A is going to be started from the topic a brief survey of prehistoric cultures in India. Prehistoric cultures in India means Stone Age. We remember this thing, Stone Age. And you know that when we start the beginning of history, we know that the early human beings, how they settled down nearby the areas of rivers, how they were living under the shadow of the trees and the caves. And similarly we see that when the men they started their development from the caves to the huts, but the huts they came later on. But early human being, how they were living, what was their living structure, and how they were spending their life, what were their amusements, what was their social life, was there any religious life also? There are so many questions that we have to discuss in prehistoric cultures. One thing is important, that the prehistoric man, he doesn't know how to write. Okay, I am going to say again this thing, that the man doesn't know how to write. So the question is coming that when he doesn't know how to write, how can we know the growth and development of man of this period? So we have to take a view of the arctic sense. Arctic sense means that the main man that they made with their hands, the objects, the physical objects that were made by man, they are the very important source, or we can say the physical evidences, or in other terms we can take these senses as the archaeological sources. They are very important to know the growth and development of prehistoric cultures of early human beings. So by taking the physical evidences or by taking the archaeological sources, we can divide this period, this prehistoric period, into three parts, that the pre-Paleolithic age, second is the Mesolithic age, and third is the Neolithic age. Pre-Paleolithic age, we can see that it is further divided into three parts, and during this period we can know that the man started to live. I told you earlier that nearby the areas of river, under the shadow of the tree, and sometime he also took the shelter in the caves. And similarly we see that the men, they were doing the hunting activity because they did not knew anything. Whatever available in the nature, they were taking them as their food. So the nature was providing them the water from the river, food from the trees. So they were living their life. So when we see that the Paleolithic age, when men moved from the Paleolithic age to Mesolithic age, so that culture was something different, and that period was something different. And how, in which manner? That during the Mesolithic period, the men started to domestication of animals. Okay, means the men, they started to domesticate that cows, the dogs and other animals for their benefit. And we see that the man, when move from that Mesolithic to Neolithic age, we see that the in the Neolithic age, the men started to the agriculture. So whenever I am telling you that the during the prehistoric man or the pre-man, the Stone Age man, he was gradually developing. So the one question is coming, that what is the thing, that what is the meaning of the that Paleolithic meaning? We see that I told you that the stone is the meaning of the lithic, and the man that was totally dependent on the stone made tools, and these tools were widely used by early human men. This is the true sense of the prehistoric cultures. Okay, so in this culture, I have told you that how early human being he developed to himself, and how he changed from early to the modern man. And this topic is very important in IAS, in RS and other competition exams. They are sometimes asking the question from the pre-Paleolithic, Mesolithic and Neolithic cultures. Second topic is the Indus civilization, the Indus Saraswati civilization. Okay, those students who are opting history, they know this topic very well, and in the 10th standard they go through that topic, that Indus Saraswati civilization means the Harappa civilization, Ghaggar Harakka civilization. Okay, and another name is the Bronze Age civilization. Many names are added to that Indus Saraswati civilization. So when we take or discuss the topic Indus Saraswati civilization, the question is coming about the origin. Origin means what is the period of Indus Saraswati civilization, and how can we know about the period? All of you know about the carbon dating. Have you heard this term, carbon dating, C14? Okay, so with the help of C14, or in the further lectures, I will also explain about the role of the C14. That C14 is the method to know the life of the objects. Objects means the trees, leaves that are available in the environment. Basically, these are the flora and fauna. So we can take the help of the C14 to know the age of these physical objects. So with the help of the C14, we can know about the exact period of Indus Saraswati civilization. And at the same time, I will also discuss that many historians, they are providing the date of Indus Saraswati civilization. Extent means the spread, how much that civilization was spread. And we see that from north to south in India and from east to west, that civilization was extended in Indian context. And while we see that in the world context, the area of Pakistan, Afghanistan, Balochistan, they were also included in this. And I will also discuss in that topic that which areas or which sites have been found in Indus Saraswati civilization, and why these areas or sites, they are very famous. Among these sites, which site is going to be the longest sites? And sometimes the question is in IS and RS is about the origin and extent of Indus Saraswati civilization. Same silent features. See this thing. What is the history? In history we discuss society. In history, sometimes we take the political features, economic features, and religious characteristics. So these are the salient features of Indus-Saraswati civilization. It means, in other words, that whenever I will discuss about you the Indus-Saraswati civilization, I will take the number one, political life, economic life, religious life, and social life, art and cultural features that were surrounding that period, and similarly the other aspects that were prevailing in that period. So these were the salient features of Indus-Saraswati civilization. Decline means how this Indus-Saraswati civilization it declined. Some historians they are saying that due to the flood, due to the environment changes, due to the changing routes of the river, Indus-Saraswati civilization we can see that it declined. And continuity, what the thing is coming, very nice thing, that the continuity means whenever a thing is going to be declined and after that we are going to discuss the continuity. The same thing that we are going to be the childhood, okay, and from childhood we are coming to the age of youngness, and from youngness to the old age, okay, and after old age the new generation will be there, and the something that some values, some ethics, they will transform from one generation to the another generation. It means similarly the same things with the Indus-Saraswati civilization. When we say that there was a decline of the Indus-Saraswati civilization, at the same time we say that the continuity, because some of the features, some of the merits, some of the salient characteristics, they passes from one period to the another period. Take the example of the worship of trees, worship of the water. We can see they were prevailing in the religious life of Indus-Saraswati civilization, and nowadays we can also see. So this is the continuity. Continuity means the present sense of or the present context that was related with the past, or any feature of the Indus civilization that we can see in our present society. So we can see that there's some religious context and some religious features, they are also prevailing in today's society. And same time we can see the worship of many trees like tulsi, banana, and that we can see that the banyan tree, and that water worship I have given you the example. Sun worship is also there. So we can see that these were the continuity, these features, they are also prevailing in the society. And after Indus-Saraswati civilization, we are going to discuss the next topic, that the Vedic age. Vedic age, all of you know that the Vedic age means in which the Vedas are written. Vedas means 4 Vedas, all of you know that: Rig Veda, after that Sam Veda, Yajur Veda, and Athar Veda. So according to the Vedic literature, and whenever these literatures are available to us, we will know about the salient features of the Vedic period. And I told you that the Vedic features, they are nothing else but the political life, society, and economic, religion, all these that are making a particular society, we have to discuss in history. देखिए भाई, history बहुत सरल subject है. What you have to do, first of all, you have to discuss the sources, and the sources we have taken Vedic literature. These are the literary sources for Vedas and other Vedic texts. They are found in the example of, have you heard about Upanishads? They deal with the philosophical ideas. Or similarly Arnyaks, Brahman Granthas, Vedants. Okay, these are the Vedic literature, and with the help of this Vedic literature, we can know about all these features that are going to be prevailed in the particular society that was none other than Vedic society. Okay, after Vedic society, we are moving to what? A brief survey of Iron Age culture. See the difference between the previous cultures and the next, again a culture that is known as the Iron Age culture. From the syllabus you can take a glimpse that whenever I am going to say that the Iron Age culture, it means before this Iron Age culture, iron was not prevalent in the society, and the people of the ancient India up to the Vedic age, they didn't know how to use iron because they were not acquainted it. So the question is coming in IAS that which metal was used in Vedic period. We can take a glimpse that, but it was not a iron, because Iron Age culture, it start from 600 BC. Okay, and up to that we can see the end of the Vedic period. In this way we can see that iron brings the agriculture revolution. It brings a new change in the society. It brings a new transformation in the society, and this transformation we can see further in the new that the rise of Janpadas and Mahajanpadas. Janpadas and Mahajanpadas. What is the meaning of Janpadas and Mahajanpadas? You know that Jan means, take the example that the group of the people, okay, one group of the people, this is here, and one group of people is here, one group of people is here. They are the Janas. They are what? Janas, Jana, and third Jana. When Jana plus Jana both combine together, they form what? Mahajanpada. Maha means the greater, Janpada, that is greater to Janpada, जो जनपदा से बड़ा हो. And similarly, Jan plus Jan means Mahajanpada. So, with the help of the again literary sources, we can know that during ancient period there were the 16 Mahajanpadas. And what is the role of the literary sources? You can see from the continuation from the Vedic period that again whenever I am going to discuss the period of Janpadas and Mahajanpadas, the role of that literary sources, they are providing the 16 Mahajanpadas role or development of the 16 Mahajanpadas during the 600 BC. And what were these Mahajanpadas? What were their political life? Who were the rulers? How they were living their life? What were their political expansion? How they extended their areas? We have to discuss the same here. And at the same time, what would be the structure of the society? What was the religion of these Mahajanpadas and Janpadas? So, I told you here that the polity, society, economy and religion, in every topic we have to discuss. So, whenever we are going to discuss Janpadas and Mahajanpadas, we have to discuss. One term is coming, monarchies. And second is the republics. Do you know the basic difference between the monarchy and republic? Monarchy means one ruler, that would be the dominant, and his rule would be the supreme. Whatever decisions would be taken by him, the objects means the people, they had to follow these rules. And republic means the form of government that is constituted by the people. Same as we seen today, the republican form of the government. So during ancient period, we are going to discuss the republics also. Oh, this is a great miracle. You can see that the republican form of government or the institutions, they existed during that period. This is very strange, and sometimes the IS is asking that how can you say that during ancient time the republic form of government or the institutions, they were working, and we have to give the answer in broad sense. So these are the very good important topic, and we have to discuss very conceptually. See, one thing I want to tell you, that it is very easy to learn the facts. What facts? That whenever I told you that iron age start 600 BC, okay, so this is the fact. But whatever the fact is coming, you have to keep in your mind the concept also. Why during the 600 BC we are going to take the iron age? Why not before this? Okay, so these are the concepts. So whenever we are going to discuss the concept, ultimately we are going to touch our IS and RS level. Because whenever we know the concept, ultimately we know the facts. Next is the rise of Mahajanpadas after this Magadhan imperialism up to Nandas. Mahajanpadas, among 16 Mahajanpadas, one Mahajanpada, that is the Magadha. Magadha, it became supreme, it came forward, and it changed into a real monarchism, and its ruler, we can see that the none other than that the Nandas, and after that we can see that the Haryak dynasty. Before Nandas, Haryak dynasty was ruling in Magadha. Both what they did, they tried to extend their empire. Imperialism means to extend the empire, to extend the territories. From Magadha to, we can see they extended their empire in eastern side, in western side, in south they also went there. So what is the meaning of imperialism? Means the extension of the territory, and especially we have to touch Nandas. Have you heard the name of the Ghananand? Okay, Ghananand, you know that, and Mahapadmanand, we can see that he was the greatest ruler of Nanda dynasty, and after him Ghananand. One story of Chanakya is also coming. Do you know the story? And what was the story? This is creating the curiosity. So whenever we are going to touch history, sometimes also I will discuss the story so that you can take the briefly that ideas that were prevailing during that period. And Nandas, we can see, when Nanda dynasty was at the center was none other than, we can say, Magda. Magda, modern Magda is Bihar, we can say, and Patliputra was its capital, and it was earlier known as the Grivraj, Rajgriha, okay, Kusumpura. They were the different names of the Patliputra, and we see that at the same time Jainism and Buddhism, they originated in the society. They were introduced by different scholars of that period, or the religious sons of different period, that Jainism by Mahavir Swami, Buddhism by Mahatma Buddha. And we see that this was the religious transformation in the society. You can imagine, earlier Iron Age culture, it brings the social and economic changes, and Jainism and Buddhism, it brings the religious changes. How the religion became changeful, and how Jainism and Buddhism, they pose the challenge before Vedic religion, because Vedic religion was before, earlier we can see, and Jainism and Buddhism, whenever these religions came into the context, what were the challenges before them, how they covered these challenges, and after that when these religion they developed, the people they actually adopted these both religion. What was the influence of these religion on the society, and not only on the society, but what was the influence of these two religion on Vedic religion? We have to also discuss teachings of Mahavir Swami, teachings of Mahatma Buddha, and the contribution of Jainism, not only in the religious and the philosophical ideas, but in total we can see that in society, in polity, in economic field, and in art and culture, literature also, because literature is full of with the Jainism and Buddhism, and we have to discuss there. And so many questions we can see in IAS and RS and other competition exam from these topics. Some topics, they are very important, and whatever I discussed, we remember that section A is very important from our IAS and RS point of view. So whenever I will discuss and bring the PPTs of particular topic, I will also bring the very good questions of IAS, so that you can develop a sense about the competition. Next, section B. Section B is the Mauryan Empire. The previous section was about the Magadhan imperialism, and from Haryak to Nanda dynasty. And we also discussed about Jainism and Buddhism. But now the section B. Section B is consisted of the Mauryan imperialism. And the Mauryan imperialism, we can see it was done by none other than Chandragupta Maurya and Ashoka. But one question is coming, that how can we know about the early life of Chandragupta Maurya, about Ashoka, what were their political achievements, how they extended their empire, what were the society of that particular period, religious contribution of that particular period, what were the economic and the political institution and the ideas that developed during the particular period. We have to again touch and start with the main sources. We remember this thing, I am saying this thing again and again, that history is nothing else but it is a story of sources. Whenever you are going to touch the sources, ultimately you know all the concepts of history, and if you are knowing the concept, ultimately you can cover everything, because facts are also included in the concept. So main sources we have to cover. In the sources, again we will discuss about the archaeological sources, about the literary sources, and what are the archaeological sources. Further, whenever I will going to discuss the topic, I will start from the archaeological sources. So whenever I will discuss the same thing, with the help of these sources, I will discuss that Ashoka's Dhamma. What was the Dhamma, definition of Dhamma, why Ashoka needed Dhamma policy, and what was its nature, how the many historians they are going to contribute this Dhamma policy of Ashoka and what was actual outcome of Ashoka's Dhamma policy. Everything is here. We have to discuss, and this topic is very, very important from our competition point of view as well as of Rajasthan University point of view. And the next, Mauryan state, because we see that Chandragupta Maurya and Ashoka, they were the true monarch, they were the dominant, all the decisions were taken by him. So what was the real nature of Mauryan state? Whatever that is, that the thing is going to be seen, जो चीज हमें दिखाई दे रही है, and what the source that they are going to be indicated, because Arthashastra and the many sources, they are saying that the decisions of Ashoka that were taken by not only by him but that there was a council of ministers. So what is the direct indication of this statement that Ashoka, he has taken his particular judgment related with the society or decision related with the society? He was not the sole authority, he was not the supreme authority, but there was a council of ministers. So in that the particular condition, what was the Mauryan state, how the council of ministers was working, and what were their issues of the society on which the political framework was going to be made. Similarly, the administration was going on at the particular period, and society, economic, art and architecture, everything we have to discuss. And art, you know the one thing that about stupa art. Have you heard about the name of Sanchi stupa? Okay, and many other stupas that the Pipara stupa, that was earliest stupa we can see. These stupas, they were going to be constructed during this period. And why the stupas? What the stupas they are going to be indicated? We see that stupa, they are related with Buddhism. Okay, so this is the concept. Can we not imagine that with the help of this stupa art, Ashoka adopted Buddhism? This is the fact also. And similarly, the concepts are also coming. We have to discuss in this way. So you can see that art and architecture further is related with Indian culture. That is the very important paper in IS and RS also. Indian culture, in this we will discuss the art and architecture. So from the beginning, whenever we are going to discuss the BA part first year, I will take this issue very seriously and very focused I am on this, and very good example I will bring you so that you can easily grasp the concept about the differences, about the features, about their contribution and relevance in the present society. The last one is the decline of the Mauryas. The topic is saying that the weak successors of Ashoka, we can see that there was a decline of this dynasty. But how this dynasty declined? Which factors were responsible during that period? And this is also the important question, and many times this question is directly coming in IS and RS. We have to take this concept very seriously, and I will bring you the very good PPT on this so that you can very easily understand about this decline of the Mauryas. See this section B. The Mauryan Empire is very important. We remember this thing, Mauryan Empire. And in IS, this from this section, we can see many questions on sometimes main sources, sometimes on Chandragupta, sometimes on Ashoka's Dhamma, sometimes on stupa art, sometimes on architecture, sometimes we can say from direct administration, and sometimes on decline of the Mauryas. This topic is important, I am saying again, and we have to take this topic very seriously. After Mauryan Empire, we have to come the post-Mauryan period. What is the difference between the Mauryan period and the post-Mauryan period? Post-Mauryan period means after Mauryan period. So, what were some changes? The period is mentioned. So before this period, 200 BC to 300 AD, we can see the period was the Mauryan period. And after, between this period, we can see the post-Mauryan period was going on. What is this C? What is this AD? You know this thing? C means Common Era. Okay, we take that Common Era, and AD means the important incident of history we have to take after death of Jesus Christ, it means Jesus Christ, before the history is going on, all the incident that before the birth of Jesus Christ is coming in C, means particular common era, and after death of Jesus Christ they are coming in AD. AD we have to take in this sense. So this is the basic difference between C and AD. We have to take it very seriously. Before this 200 BC, everything we will discuss in common era, and after that we are going to take in AD, means after death of Jesus Christ. So we see that very good origins of the many dynasties, that they were none other than Shungas, Satvahans, Shakas and Kushanas. What was the social, economic, political, religious life we have to see here. Okay, and similarly we have to see that decline of the Mauryas, how they are related with the origin of the Shungas. Who was responsible for it? A ruler who was known as the Pushyamitra Shunga, who was as the commander of chief, and he murdered the last Mauryan ruler, and now became he powerful, and he set up a new dynasty that was known as Shungas dynasty. And Satvahana dynasty, that was working on the concept of the motherhood. It means what was there? The rulers, they adopted the name of their mothers. For example, Gautami Putra Shatkarni, okay, Shatkarni first, Balshri Shatkarni. They are the few names that are going to indicate that motherhood concept was prevalent in the society. So on the basis of it, we can assume that the condition of mother was very good in the Satvana period. Shakas who came outsiders, who came in India from the Central Asia, and similarly Kushanas, they also came in India from Central Asia. So Shakas, Kushana, although they were the foreigners, but they adopted Indian culture. You know Shaka ruler, that, yes, very good, Rudradaman first. Rudradaman first. Rudradaman first, Junagadh inscription. Okay, and it is in Sanskrit language. What is this thing? Shaka ruler, who were the outsiders, and Rudradaman, who was a foreign ruler, but he adopted Indian culture. Sanskrit language was adopted by him, and Junagadh inscription, it was written in, it was the first inscription that is written in Sanskrit language. So you can see here many examples how Indian culture was working, how Indian culture influenced the other cultures. And Kushanas, Kushana, great Kushana ruler, yes, Kanishka. And Kanishka, who adopted Buddhism. You know this thing? Because 4th Buddhist Council was there in his period. And Kushana, we see that they also belong to Central Asia, but they were totally influenced with Indian culture. Sometimes these rulers, they adopted Shaivism, and sometimes we see that Kushana ruler, Kanishka, he adopted Buddhism. So you can see that influence of Indian culture on Kushana's ruler. And we also discuss here art and architecture, literature also, because with the help of art and architecture, literature, we can clearly assume the development of the particular period or the achievements of Shungas, Satvahanas, Shakas and Kushanas. Next, social, religious and economic life and development of literature and arts during the post-Mauryan period. See, I told you here that we have to discuss social, religious and economic life of Shungas, Satvahanas and Shakas and Kushana. At the same time, we will also discuss literature and artistic point of view, main features of the art related with these dynasties, and they are very important from the competition point of view. Next is the Sangam age. Sangam age, that is in south. Whatever I discuss that they were mostly the kingdoms that were ruling from Central India, okay, and from Patliputra. But here we see that Sangam age, that was the particular period developed in South India, and we see that the Sangam age, they having their literature, their society, economy and culture. Tamil language was the prominent language, and what is the Sangam? Sangam is the name of a literature that was written during the period of Chola, Cheras. We see that, and with the help of this literature, we can know about the society, economy, and cultural achievements of the Sangam period. This topic is also important from IAS point of view, and we have to take this topic very seriously. Now come to the section C. Section C is very important. Actually, I want to say that whole ancient Indian history is important, but some topics we have to do at any cost. At any cost means we cannot neglect these topics. Among them, I have told you earlier that from section A, and from section B I have given you some topics. Now come to the section C, the Gupta Empire. Have you heard the name of Samudragupta? Have you heard the name of Chandragupta II? Have you heard the name of Kalidasa? Have you heard the name of Allahabad inscription? Okay, they are actually belong to Gupta dynasty, and we see that during this period, Samudragupta, who conquered almost whole India, and he is known as the Napoleon of India. You know this thing? All of you know this thing? Napoleon. Who is Napoleon? Napoleon actually is the ruler of France. But like Napoleon Samudragupta, he tried to conquer the whole India. Napoleon, who tried to conquer France and nearby areas of Europe. Similarly, Samudragupta, he did a lot of expeditions. He did a lot of invasions and conquered the most territories and collected revenues from that side. So he never defeated. He was never defeated in his life like Napoleon Bonaparte. That is why many historians like Vincent Smith, he is saying that Samudragupta is known as Napoleon of India. So Samudragupta's achievement we will discuss. After that, Chandragupta II, Kramaditya. Kramaditya is the title of Chandragupta II. After that, we have to discuss that Kumar Gupta. We have to discuss that Skand Gupta, and after Skand Gupta, we will discuss the decline of the Gupta rulers, how they declined. At the same time, I will discuss the attacks of Hunas. Hunas, that was a tribe who came from Central Asia, and Mihirkul was that important ruler. Torman and Mihirkul, both were the important rulers, and during Gupta period, they attacked on Indian territories, on from West India, from Gujarat side, they tried to enter in India. So at the same time, state and administrative institution of the Gupta period. We remember here that you have to do the comparison between Mauryan administration and Gupta's administration. Why? Because in ancient India, we can see the climax of the administration, where whenever we are going to discuss the Mauryan administration, and at the same time that Gupta's administration. When you do the comparative study, you can clearly get the idea about the particular the existence of the institution, the development of the institution, and how they worked, what was their concept that were working, and how the pupil and the other minister, they were totally attached to it, and what is the relevance of that administration of the Mauryas and the Guptas in present day society. Because whenever we are not going to touch the present context, we cannot give our answer very fruitfully. We have to very seriously touch our present. We see that in present, both that Mauryan features and the Gupta's features, they are working. How they are working and which type of these features we have to discuss. Whenever I will bring this topic, I will discuss there. At the same time, social and economic life, religious thought and institution, development in literature, art and sciences. You know that Gupta age is known as the golden period of ancient India. Why this golden period? Because we can see that in Gupta period, development of art and architecture was its climax. It means the temples, that stupas, viharas, chaityas, everything we can see that they were constructed. In painting, we can see the Ajanta paintings. They are giving the very good examples, not only in the context of Indian culture, but they are giving the also views in world. Okay, they are also included in the world heritage. So at the same time, literature, Kalidasa literature, we can see that was written in Sanskrit language. And what was the literature? What was its impact? How the literature is useful to know all the achievements of the Gupta period, I will discuss there. Besides Kalidasa, we can see that there were the other historians, other literary skills that were working there. Harisena was working, and he was in the court of the Samudragupta. And what was his contribution? What was the contribution of the other literary sources and the persons? I will discuss whenever I will bring you the whole Gupta Empire. Next, the post-Gupta period up to 750 AD. See, after this we see that achievements of the Vardhans. Vardhans means, have you heard the name of Harshvardhan? Yes. Harshvardhan belonged to the Vardhan dynasty, and he was very important ruler of Vardhan dynasty. What was his achievement? Politically, religiously, socially, economically, and all the administrative point of view, very good concepts I will bring before you. And at the same time, Chalukyas. Why Chalukyas? You can see that Harsha had a rivalry with the Chalukyas. Have you heard the name of the Pulkeshin II? Yes, Pulkeshin II belonged to the Chalukya dynasty. So we will see that how these two rulers they did a fight, and what were the consequences of this fight, and why these fights, why these rivalry, they are important in history context. Everything I will discuss with you. And at the same time, I will further saying that history is nothing else, but we have to again and again discuss the literature, that the monuments, that the archaeological sources. If we are going to touch literature, archaeological sources, it means you are going to know the concept of history. See, IAS को पढ़ने का सबसे आसान तरीका क्या है, या RS को पढ़ने का आसान तरीका क्या है? My dear students, go through the literary and archaeological sources. Whenever you are going to discuss these literary and archaeological sources, it means you have really touching a sense of history, because history is nothing else. It is a sense of the literature and archaeological sources. So why not we are going to take the literary sources and the archaeological sources? I will do one thing, that I will bring you the more and more sources before you, so that you can develop a historical temperament, and with this temperament further useful in your competition as well as your career. After this, section C, Palwas dynasty. Again, it was ruling in South India. Okay, what was their contribution? Have you heard about the Mahabalipuram temple? Okay, it belonged to Palwa dynasty. You can see what were the features of Mahabalipuram temple, and how the Mahabalipuram temple influenced the temple architecture in India. Many good questions are coming, and in IAS we can see the very good questions on Pallav dynasty, especially temple constructing art. So we have to discuss there. And tripartite struggle, that struggle we can see among the three dynasties, Gujar, Pratihar, Palas and Rashtrakutas, to take the boundary of Kannauj. How these rulers they fought among themselves. Who was the winner? What was the impact of this struggle? We have to discuss this. And why this topic is coming? Because we see that when we discuss this topic, this was the period when we see the Arab conquest. Arab they made they tried to do an invasion on Sindh. This was the period, and we see that the further Mahmud Ghaznavi, Muhammad Ghori, the other Turkish rulers, they came in India. This period was about the 200 period, and we see that was the really decline of ancient Indian history. And the imperial Cholas and their achievements. Cholas, we see that their capital was Tanjore, and we see that in South India that dynasty was ruling. What was the achievements of the Cholas, how the Chola ruler they were working, what was the political life, their administrative life, what was their society, what were the political ideas and the concept that were working there. Why I am saying this there one thing is coming in my mind, that when we take the sources of the Cholas, one inscription is coming, that the Uttarameru inscription. You know this Uttarameru inscription. This Uttarameru inscription is giving the information about the local self-government. What is the meaning of the local self-government? Yes, Panchayati system. It means the Panchayati system that we launched after independence. It was working in ancient India earlier, and from Chola period. This is the very, you can see that this is the miracle. And what we have to do, we have to take the ideas of the local self-government that was working in Uttarameru, that was working in Chola's administration and Chola empire. So this is the very important, and many times IAS and RS, they are asking the question on this topic. So please be careful whenever you are going to touch this topic. A social and economic changes and a brief survey of cultural life during the period century 750 to 1200 AD. Everything has come in here, and again we have to take the social life, political ideas and the concept, religious ideas, so that we can develop a sense. And in this period from beginning to 1200 AD we have to touch. After this we can say that we have completed our ancient Indian history. After discussing the syllabus, it is essential to know about the examination pattern of the University of Rajasthan examination. I have discussed that the syllabus is divided into 3 parts, and we can see that from the syllabus various questions are coming, and the University of Rajasthan, they are asking various questions. The whole paper is divided into 100 marks. Okay, 100 marks paper is there. And you have to see that how 100 marks are divided. See, very short questions, and 10 questions would be there, and you have to write in 20 words. Okay, be remember this thing, 20 words. It means the each question you have to write in 20 words, and it would be of the 2 marks. And these questions are compulsory. All these questions are compulsory, and you have to do the all questions. Okay, try to do the all questions. After that you have to face the short questions. Short questions, they would be the 10, and out of 10 you have to do the 5 questions, and they would be of the 4 marks. In this way the 20 marks of the short questions. Okay, we remember this thing. And part B is divided into 3 sections, and from each section there would be the 2 questions, and from 2 questions you have to do the 1 question. Okay, 3 long question in this manner you have to do from 3 units and sections, and each question is of the 20 marks. In this way 60 marks questions. And these questions, they of course of the long questions, and you have to give the answer in about, I think so, 5 to 6 pages. Be clear this thing. And after this move to the topic. Now we are going to start our topic, and the topic is sources of ancient India. See, what is this thing? If the first chapter is about the prehistoric culture or the Paleolithic age, then why I am taking this topic? The very essential thing is that the history is dependent upon the sources. History किस पे depend है? Sources पे. And without sources, we cannot go through the culture of ancient India. So what is the essential for us to know the sources? And what are the sources? We can see that they are divided further into 2 parts, archaeological as well as literary. What are the types of these sources? What is the definition? We further see and discuss in broadly manner. Now, before starting the topic, it is essential to know that various questions that are asked in various types of competitive exams, you can see that the study of coin is known as, and this question is in IS 2000, and the 4 options are available here. And if you want to know the exact answer of the question, first you have to know the meaning of the four options. If you know the clear meaning of the epigraphy, if you know the clear meaning of the numismatics, similarly calligraphy and carpology, you can very frequently give the answer of this question. And the second question, you can see the ancient Indian coins are known as. This question, it is from RS 1998, and these again the four options are available: Ahat coins, Karshapan, Pana, Nishka coins. You can see these are the different names of the coins, and what the question is saying, we have to see this, and what the other facts are related with other three options we must have to know also. Now the next question is, the oldest Ahat coins were made of. This question is asking about the metal, and this question is from IS 2002, very recently you can see, and silver, copper, gold and copper, gold and silver, silver, gold and copper. What would be the answer, and why the particular metal was used during the particular period? In this way we can know the exact economic condition of the particular period. This is the conceptual part, but factual part is that the oldest Ahat coins were made of. We have to know the metal. Next question you can see, who introduced the golden coins in India? It means whenever the golden coins, they were introduced in India by whom? And it is also very essential, because coins are important to know the whole particular period of history. We can say that we can know the social, economic, political as well as the cultural aspect of the particular period. And this question is from IS 2000. You can see that the four options are available. So the first question is coming, who were the Shakas, from where they came, what is the contribution of the Shakas in Indian history. Similarly, Indo-Greeks, Kushans, Hunas, they are also very important facts, and we have to know actual the basic background behind these three options. So you can, after knowing this, we can clearly give the proper answer of this question. Now very short answer is coming. Very short answer means you have to give the answer in 20 words. Okay, so this question is punch marked coins. This question, we can see in University of Rajasthan examination in 2016 as well as in 17, and many years we can see that this question is going to be repeated. It means we have to perfectly give the answer of this question, but we remember we don't have to write the whole history of the coins, because the question is upon punch marked coins. Only and only 20 words. Within the 20 words we have to write down the answer. Now come to the topic. The topic is the sources of ancient India. Okay, we remember this thing. So the first question is coming, what is the meaning of sources? See, sources means they are means to know history. They are leader. They are the सीढ़ियां है एक तरीके की, and with the help of these means we can know the particular period, and we can also know, if I am saying the particular period, it means we can know the social aspect, we can know the economic concept, we can know the political thoughts, we can know the cultural that the particular thing that was prevalent from the cultural point of view there. So various types of questions are related, and we can see we can know these aspects with the help of these sources. So they are means, ये साधन है to know history. Example, see what is this? These are coins. Okay, coins. First of all, we can see that the type of sources. Second thing is coming. What is this? Pillars. Okay. See, Nalanda University. It means monuments. Again, Kautilya's Arthashastra. It means this is a book. Meghdutam. Okay, Kalidasa's Meghdutam, because who is the author of Meghdutam? Kalidasa. Okay. Again, Rastarangni. It is written by Kalhan. See, various types of sources has been before you. Okay, now coins, pillars, Nalanda University, and these literary sources. Getting this point. So the one question is coming, how these sources are helpful for us. See, these are the coins. Okay, you can see the particular images on the coins. If suppose on one coin you find the image of Lord Krishna, it means What is the meaning of this? It means the worship of Lord Krishna is very popular in the particular period or particular part of India. Getting this point? Similarly, if the coins they are made of the gold, if they are made of the silver, if they made of the copper, so what we can say that the particular metal is presented during the particular period, and with the use of these metals, the particular coins they were struck. Okay. Now the pillars. See the pillars. These are the pillars. Okay. These pillars they were constructed with the help of the stone, limestone we can see, and we can see the series of the pillars here. Okay. And the question is coming, how the pillars are important, and with the help of pillars, how can we know history? I will discuss everything else, but first come to point. Nalanda University. You know where is the Nalanda University is located? Okay, in Bihar. This is the very important monument to know the educational development during the ancient period. And can you give the name of the rulers who were associated with Nalanda University? Can you give the name of the scholars who were associated with the Nalanda University? So many questions they are coming in our mind. Okay, who constructed this Nalanda University, and who has given the grant to Nalanda University? Now today we can see the location of Nalanda University and what is the existence of Nalanda University today. So many questions they are coming in mind. Okay, so with the help of the sources, we can know the every answer. But we have to wait one by one. We can know. See the Kautilya's Arthashastra. This is the literary source, and we can see that it is written on the book, The Way of Financial Management and Economic Governance. It means this book is helpful to know the particular economic and financial condition of the one period. And the period, first of all, we must have to bear in our mind that the period is none other than Maurya period. Okay, Maurya period. And this book was written by Kautilya during Maurya period. So what were the chief features of Maurya period? And in other words, we can say that what were the economy of Maurya period, because these economic aspects they are highlighted by Kautilya's Arthashastra. Similarly, you can take Kalidasa's Meghdutam, the cloud messenger. See, this is the very good story is coming. I will also discuss the story whenever I will come to the literary sources, and you can see how the stories are helpful to know us. See, with the help of the story, we can understand the climatic condition, geographical condition, or any social aspect, or any administrative concept. Suppose the ruler was ruling, and if we heard of everybody, it means the ruler was liked by everyone. So the republican concept of government was prevalent, and sometimes we say that the ruler thought that he was the supreme authority. It means the sovereignty was in the hands of the ruler. It means dictatorship concept was prevalent, autocratic government was prevalent. So these literary sources are very helpful to know the various aspects of the society. Similarly, Kalhan's Raj Tarangni, a chronicle of the kings of Kashmir. See, it is written here. If we want to know the history of Kashmir, and similarly, not only with the Kashmir history is written, but the relation of Kashmir rulers with the neighboring areas, we can also understand with the help of Kalhan's Raj Tarangni. See, all these are the sources, and they are very important to know the different cultures of the particular period. Now, sources of ancient India, when we say, in the previous slides, I have told you coins, pillars, Nalanda University, and the literature. Can you understand the basic difference between these upper sources, that the coins, pillars, Nalanda University, and Kautilya's Arthashastra, Meghdutam, and Kalhan's Raj Tarangni? Can you imagine the difference? Yes, very good. The difference is saying that these sources are of the two types. One is the archaeological sources, in which what we can see coins, pillars, monuments. Okay, similarly any building, library, you can see that they should be kept in archaeological sources. Seal also here, any we can say temple, construction of the temple is also in archaeological source. And the other source we can see that is of literary sources. And whatever I discussed with you, Kautilya's Arthashastra, Kalhan's Rastarangini, Kalidasa's Meghdutam, they are the literary sources. Okay, now come to the definition. What is the definition of archaeological sources? See, try to understand the meaning of this archaeological source with the help of a story. Okay, you are going on a way, आप एक रास्ते पे जाते हैं, and all of sudden you are आपके पैरों में एक सिक्का आ जाता है, आपके पैरों में कुछ आ जाता है और आप उसको देखते हैं. आप you dug the land. After digging the land, you found a coin. Okay, when you found a coin, you see that, and what is in your mind, that you have to dug the land or you have to excavate the land in this manner that you cannot do any harm to the coin. ओके, गेटिंग दिस पॉइंट. आप इस तरीके से कॉइन को निकालने का प्रयास करेंगे कि उसके वो जो है वो नष्ट नहीं हो जाए. क्लियर दिस थिंग. और जब आपके पास कॉइन आ जाता है हाथों में, सो यू नो दैट द पर्टिकुलर कॉइन बिलोंग टू द पर्टिकुलर पीरियड, एंड विद द हेल्प ऑफ द मेटल वी कैन आल्सो टेक द वी कैन आल्सो इमेजिन आल्सो द ग्रोथ ऑफ द पर्टिकुलर पीरियड. सो द आर्कियोलॉजिकल सोर्सेज डेफिनेशन इज कमिंग दैट दे आर excavated. Excavated means they are dug and explored. Explored means they are going to be researched, अनुसंधान किए जाते हैं. Dig under the surface of the earth. ये अर्थ के नीचे रहते हैं और इनको क्या किया जाता है? डिग किया जाता है, इनको खुदाई की जाती है. एंड टू फाइंड टूल्स, इसमें क्या इंक्लूड रहता है? टूल्स, वेपन्स, पोर्ट्स, पेन्स, ऑर्नामेंट्स, कॉइन्स, seals and monuments you can see. Okay, they are the examples of the archaeological sources. You can see tools, they are made of the different metals. Similarly, pots, they are constructed with the help of the soil. मिट्टी की सहायता से बनाया जाता है pots को. And what the exactly pots indicate? आप कहेंगे मैडम इसमें कौन सी बात है? See, if you can see on the pot that the design is coming, geometrical design is coming, and we know that the particular metal is used in a particular period. Okay, so geometrical designs, with the help of these designs we can say that the people, they were acquainted, परिचित थे, familiar थे with the mathematics knowledge. See, this is the result. Getting this point? Similarly, with the help of the tools, if the tools are, they are sharp, if the tools they are not in a polished manner, we can imagine that the particular period was very simple and sober. Getting this point? So these are the various assumptions on which basis we can predict the particular society. And in other words, what in other words? They include material things like artifacts. What is the meaning of the artifact? Because competition is asking the definition of the artifacts. Artifacts means the tools, pots, weapons that were made by human beings or human made things. They are known as artifacts. We remember this thing, human made things. Means pots, tools, weapons. Okay, buildings, inscriptions, coins, etc. They are everything coming in archaeological sources. Clear this definition? I am going to repeat again. Archaeological sources, number one, they are excavated. How they are excavated? By digging, उनकी खुदाई करके, and explored, उनका अनुसंधान, रिसर्च की जाती है. रिसर्च कैसे की जाती है? मैंने आपको बताया, कॉइन जो आपको मिला, उस कॉइन को आपने क्या किया? रिसर्च की उसके ऊपर कि किस मेटल का है, किस पर्टिकुलर पीरियड से इसका कनेक्शन है, और इससे हमें विच टाइप ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन वी कैन गेट, एंड हाउ दिस इंफॉर्मेशन इज यूजफुल टू नो और कनेक्ट हिस्ट्री. सी, एंड ये एग्जाम्पल्स पोर्ट्स, weapons, tools, pens, ornaments and coins. Clear? Now come to this thing, literary sources. See the thing, the literary sources क्या होते हैं? जो that are to be written और जो that were written during the ancient period and they are helpful to know the ancient Indian history. So the question is coming, how the ancient people they started to write or how their writings became useful. Clear this thing. So we can see उस समय कोई पेपर नहीं होता था. There was no invention of the paper. आज जब हम पेपर पे लिखते हैं हम देखते हैं कि ये तो लास्ट 14th सेंचुरी और फर्स्ट 15th सेंचुरी में हमें दिखाई देता है. एंड मंगोल्स दे इंट्रोड्यूस द पेपर. But the question is coming, if the paper was not in the existence during ancient period, how the ancient people they used to write? वो कैसे लिखा करते थे? See what they were doing. They were writing on birch bark and palm leaves. It means the simple thing is coming that they were using the leaves. वो क्या करते थे? Leaves को, पत्तियों को यूज किया करते थे और on that leaves they started to write down whatever they felt. You know, Vedas they were written on that leaf. Similarly, many important facts that are in the literary sources they are also written in the form of the leaves. You can find that these leaves they are also known, whatever written on the leaves, what is known as manuscripts. Be remember this thing, manuscript किसे कहते हैं? That is written on birch bark. Birch bark यानी कि एक प्रकार का एक लीव होती है and palm leaf जिस पर लिखा गया उसको हम क्या कहते हैं? Manuscripts. These are the examples of the manuscripts. You can see that there is something written on these leaves and they are in the form of the manuscripts. Clear this thing? Now we see that in archaeological sources we are taking coins. Okay, we are going to start from the archaeological sources and I told you that the archaeological sources they are of very type, that pillars I have discussed, seals I discussed, coins, okay, monuments, sculptures, मूर्तियां वगैरह अपन ने सब डिस्कस की. Now the thing is coming that we are going to take coins. Now one word is coming, numismatics. So what is the meaning of the numismatics? See that numismatics means the study of coins. The study of coin is known as numismatics. Okay, and now we are going to start history of ancient coins. It means उनका एग्जिस्टेंस हमें कब से दिखाई देता है, कौन कौन से रूलर्स थे जो इन कॉइन्स को के साथ जो जुड़े रहे और इन कॉइन्स में किन किन मेटल्स का यूज किया गया. एवरीथिंग वी वांट टू नो, क्योंकि बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन अब हमारे दिमाग में आने शुरू हो गए हैं. सी that the earliest coins they are known as punch marked coin or ahat coins. इन्हें पीट पीट कर बनाया जाता था और we can see that the metals that were used, silver in the beginning and later on copper was also introduced. In this way, if the competition is asking about the metal, you have to take mark on silver and copper. Be remember, mixed नहीं है. Silver and copper metal के क्या बनाए गए? Punch marked coins बनाए गए. Why these coins? They are known as punch marked coins. Why? Because we can see that on these coins 5 symbols were there. 5 symbol कौन कौन से थे? Punch mark पे we can see that the half moon, bull, fish, tree. Okay, these were the symbols that were associated with punch marked coins. Now the question is coming that these coins, if they were made of the silver and copper, then how when the gold coins they were constructed? Wait for a minute. We have to see that these punch marks coins they were introduced during the pre-Mauryan period. Okay, and Mauryan coinage we can see that of the copper metal is used, okay, and we can see that on these Mauryan coinage that you can see that the wheel is used, okay, and we can see that the elephant figure is also here, you can see. So these were the chief features of the Mauryan coinage. And after Mauryan coinage we see that Indo-Greek coins, you can see the metals. Here the metal is different, here Mauryan coinage metal is different. Indo-Greek coins, they are of the different types. Why? Because golden metal is used, gold metal is used to struck Indo-Greek coins. You know the history of Indo-Greek coins, or you want to know? Indo-Greeks, they came from Greek and they were foreigners. Actually they wanted to capture India, but ruler was the Menander, who struck various coins in India. And the feature you can see, how you can differentiate among these coins. You can see that some you can see that some geometrical figures on Panchmark coins here. Similarly on the Mauryan coins, you can see wheel, elephant figures are there. But Indo-Greek coins, they were bearing the figure of human being. You can see the one figure of man. Okay, you can also see here. In other words, we can see that Indo-Greeks were the first who introduced the coins with inscriptions. It means that was something written on the coins. Before Indo-Greek coins, we can see that nothing was written on Panchmark coins as well as of the Mauryan coinage. But you can see that the figure was on Indo-Greek coins and the name of the ruler, name, date, okay, any title, if there would be. These Indo-Greek coins, they were bearing everything. Now, you can see that the Kushana period coinage. Who were the Kushanas? Kushanas, they were also the foreigners and they came from Central Asia. Okay, and Kujul Kadphises. Was the founder. We can see that after Kujul Kadphises, Vim Kadphises struck the coins. So the question is coming, why during the period of Vim Kadphises the golden coins to be struck? Why not before this? See, very rationally we have to give the answer. We can see that during the Kushana period, India's economic relations, they were set up with Rome. Rome, where it is located? In Europe, and it is the capital of Italy. And during ancient period, we can see that our India's trading links with Rome. And from Rome, we can see that Rome, it was going to purchase black pepper, spices, मसालों को वो खरीदता था भारत से. And in lieu of this black pepper and spices, Rome had to pay gold to India. उसको सोना देना पड़ता था. So in this way we can see that the gold it started to come in India, and we can see that during the period of Vim Kadphises, heavy quantity of gold came in India, and we can know this fact with various archaeological as well as of the literary sources. That is why during the period of Vim Kadphises, the golden coins, they started to be struck in India. Clear this thing? Now you can see the Gupta coinage. Gupta coinage, they were also were in different metals, gold, silver and other metals they were used. And we can see that these Gupta coinage, they were bearing the various images of god and goddesses as well as of ruler. So with the help of these coinage, we can identify the particular god was worshipped during the particular period. And similarly, we can see that one man, it was on horse and having the sword and whatever the other weapons. We can imagine that the particular person was very brave, and if we identify the metals period, we can say that the particular person was of Chandragupta II, and the image belonged to Chandragupta II, and this image belonged to his invasion against various places. In this way, we can know the different aspect of history. Now come to the question. The study of coins is known as, I told you whenever I started the our slides, epigraphy, numismatics, calligraphy, carpology. So yes, what is the answer? Okay, numismatics. But the question is coming, why not epigraphy, why not calligraphy, why not carpology? Okay. Epigraphy is the study of inscriptions. Calligraphy is related with the our writing. छोटे बच्चे करते हैं ना कैलीग्राफी, डिफरेंट तरीके के इंग्लिश के जो वर्ड्स होते हैं उनको लिखने का तरीका कैलीग्राफी. कार्पोलॉजी इज रिलेटेड विथ आवर बायोलॉजिकल टर्म्स, विथ आवर सीड्स and related with seeds and seeds aspects. So if we want to know the exact answer of the question, first of all we should have to clear the answer of the three options. If we know the other facts related with the options, we can clearly give the answer. One thing more, this question is in IS 2000. Maybe that the next question would be on the epigraphy, that epigraphy is related with the study of inscription, coins, monuments. So what would be the answer? That is the inscriptions. That is the study related with pillars. What is written on the pillar? Inscription means what is written on the pillar. और इसको simple करिए pillar. Getting this point? So maybe you can face this question in whenever you are going to attempt your competition exam. Next question is, the ancient Indian coins are known as, okay, Ahat coins, Karshapan, Panna, Nishk coins. What is this? We see that I told you that the ancient most coins are Ahat or Panchmark coins. Karshapan, Panna, Nishk coins. We can see that they were the coins belong to ancient period, but to the different dynasty. And these coins they introduced later on Ahat coins. Karshapan, Panna was the main coinage during the Mauryan period. In Mauryan period, the currency that was known as Panna. Be remember this thing. Many times the question is asking that Panna belonged to which dynasty? Maurya period. Karshapan, that was also used to, we can see from Vedic age, Maurya age, and we can say that during ancient period this coinage was used. And Nishka coins, that was a weighted system, okay, and it was of a gold coin, but all these coins they were used later on, not before Ahat coins. So the right answer is Ahat coins. Next question is, the oldest Ahat coins were made of. I told you that whenever any type of coin is coming, you have to keep in your mind the metal. Silver and copper, gold and copper, gold and silver, silver, gold and copper. And answer is that silver and copper, these metals were used to construct or the struck Ahat coins. These Ahat coins, they were struck with the help of silver and copper metal. Clear this thing? Be remember this thing. Who introduced the golden coins in India? Yes, who were there? Shakas, Indo-Greece, Kushana, Sunas. See, all these, they were the foreigners. They were the foreigners. They were the outsiders. They came in India, okay. But among them were foreigners who introduced the golden coins, and it was none other than Indo-Greeks. I told you that the Menander was the main ruler, and in the previous slide, you know that Menander, he used to write the date, the succession period and the name of the ruler. So with the help of this we can clearly assume that the particular ruler was ruling from this period to that period. So the right answer is Indo-Greeks. Kushanas, they were the latter who came after that Shakas. Okay, and Hunas, they were the last during the ancient period. We can see that who came out from outside. Now come to the very short answer. Punch marked coins. This is the pattern that how you have to write. See, the most ancient punch mark or ahat coins made of with silver and copper. Be remember what you have to write, that punch mark coins, they were the ancient coins. First of all, ancient punch mark or ahat coins made of with silver or copper, bearing the 5 symbols, elephant, wheel, harpoon, etc. And we have to write this much answer because the answer is in 20 words. Don't try to write down the whole story of the coins, because if you are going to do this, your answer would be crossed. So 20 words answer means you have to write down is in such. So one question is coming, ma'am, you have written in bracket. Bracket words, they are not to be counted. जो bracket में लिखा जाता है उसको count नहीं किया जाता. आपके count यहाँ से लेकर यहाँ तक ही होगा. Clear this thing? So whatever you are going to give the information, if a particular dynasty is also coming, you can also write in the bracket, because bracket words, they are not to be going to be counted. Yes. In this way, we try to know the essential information regarding the coins. Next PPT I will present before you again on the coins, and through the PPT we will try to understand how the coins are useful to know the various aspects of the ancient India. Various aspects of ancient India means that the social features, how the society was working, which features that were prominent during the ancient society. Similarly, economic thoughts, political concept, art and cultural concepts. We have to religious concept also. In this way, we have to discuss so much. And from this conceptual part, various types of factual questions, they will also come before us. Okay? तब तक के लिए आप क्या करेंगे, सब्सक्राइब करें हमारे परिष्कार वर्ल्ड ऐप को और बेल आइकन करना ना भूलें, जिससे आपको लेटेस्ट जो अपडेट्स हैं वो मिलते रहें. तब तक के लिए धन्यवाद, नमस्कार.
सब्सक्राइब करें परिष्कार कॉलेज यूट्यूब चैनल को और साथ ही बेल आइकन पर क्लिक जरूर करें, जिससे हमारे सभी वीडियोस नोटिफिकेशन सबसे पहले आप तक पहुंचे.